Hi, guys. Welcome to the Lit Mag Lab podcast. This is Vevna Forrow. Yeah, let's get started. All right, guys. So previously we discussed first North American serial rights and what that means, because oftentimes you come across, things that say what the rights are that you have to your work after it's accepted. And it's so important to, again, ask about that and to look for that if they're not outright having that on their website. Always a good idea to ask. So listen back to that. It was a shorter episode. And for this one, I want to talk about something that is very common for not just publishers, but also writers. So should you use ISN, or do you need an ISN or an ISBN as a publisher? And as a writer, this could come into play as a question overall, I guess, for this episode. What are the differences or the importance of having an ISN and ISBN as a publication? Why do you need those barcodes, right? And is it necessary? So I guess multiple questions here. But so I'll share with you guys. When I started Dippity Lit Mag, we were not having our ISSN. And if you don't know what ISSN stands for, you should, because it's important to know this. So ISN is the International Standard Serial Number. So the ISBN, it stands for International Standard Book Number. Now, they look similar. I mean, barcodes look similar, right? But there's difference between them. So if you have any serial publications, magazines, journals, newspapers, etc., they should technically have an ISSN. If you look at some of the lit mags and journals you've purchased, or even some of the small Zine publications, some of them may have that listed. They may have a registered ISSN, and if they don't, it's not mandatory. It's not mandatory for any magazine or journal or any serial publication to have one, but it helps. With let's say your work comes into contact with a library, that makes it easier for them to keep records of it and the stock and the quantities, I guess, in a place or a location. Same thing with ISBNs. It helps with tracking sales, ordering, and things like that. It is a good identification system. The thing about ISBNs, right, is that they're not technically free if you want to have your name or the imprint of your publication. So hypothetically, let's say you decide to publish a issue through Blurb. Blurb is a common one I see others use, and MagCloud and other places, and they don't all have pre-provided codes. Blurb does. Amazon has pre-provided ISBNs. But the thing is, on some of these places, like print-on-demand spaces especially, if they give you the ISBN, right, the imprint is not yours, and it won't have your publication name when it's in the listing details, for that ISBN that's associated with. Now, you'll still be the publisher of the magazine and the issues. If you look closely at some of these places' terms and services, they'll outright say, please do not list us as the publisher inside anywhere. They are not responsible for the content. They are not the publisher. They are merely the print provider. So there's a difference there. You're still the publisher of it. It's just you won't have that visible imprint on it. And to get that visible imprint, right, you have to typically get an ISBN. Now, where do you get an ISBN that, you can have your imprint on it? Well, obviously, a lot of people know Bowker exists, right? I think I'm pronouncing right, Bowker. And I feel like a lot of people find that it's some sort of pyramid scheme or something, right? I don't know. I think because of just how much it costs, it's kind of like, So the let's see here. I think I have the notes on the cost here. So on Bowker, I think one ISBN as of April 2025, it was showing $125, and 100 ISBNs was showing $575, and 1,000 ISBNs, I think that was showing $1,500. So you can see the amount there. It's kind of right? And there are, some places that, do give you barcodes, again, that allow you to have your imprint and stuff, like Ingram Spark, right? Quite a few publishers and writers use that. I have tried to set up an account at Ingram Spark, and honestly, the process and the UI and the interface was rather difficult and confusing. It wasn't user-friendly for me. I know, like, each platform has complaints, so, and pros and cons. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of people use it, obviously, but I just didn't have the greatest experience with it. So it was just really tough. But yeah, I believe they provide barcodes. I think the costs are different there. I thought I heard it was like 80 something bucks. I could be wrong. And numbers on this podcast, again, like stats and costs, right, can change. So over time. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, usually I see, others buy packs of ISBNs and then, for their publications, even if as you're a writer, there are, some buy packs of ISBNs. But honestly, it comes down to whether you really intend on having your book or publication, whether it be a magazine or issue, get into physical locations and stores. Because if you don't really care much about that, then it's really not necessary to have a barcode on, whatever you're publishing. Some writers just, have their book printed, and there are places that just print books and they don't have a barcode on it or anything, and they just sell it from their website, or they sell issues from the site or the publication site. If it's a lit mag or journal, there's some that, sell it without a barcode or any, tracker at the back. I see that a lot with Zines and things like that. But again, yeah. So if you want to get into bookshops and locations, like I reached out to about 20 bookshops within a couple of years ago, and a lot of them were saying if it's in the Ingram network, yeah, we can try and order it, we can check it out. So it has to be, for most places, in the Ingram network, and so there are some places that have that distribution option. But of course, what I see with that is that there sometimes they tack on additional listing fees and stuff, and of course, a percentage of what you get back is like subtracted or affected by that in some cases. So from sales. But yeah, I can cover that in another episode, perhaps, like what the Ingram network means and distribution and stuff. But yeah, just keep in mind there are different places you can get an ISBN from. You have to be careful. There are a lot of shady places that have ISBN, fake stuff. So Bowker is pretty well known, and I feel like because they're like one of the most common places those in the US get barcodes from, yeah, maybe that's why they charge that much. I don't know how they come up with that price, those prices for the packs of ISBNs and everything. I know, yeah, so magazines and issues, so they technically can have both an ISBN and an ISSN. And you want to make sure those are visible. When I started Dippity Lit Mag, I ended up doing the ISSN application through, I think it's ISSN.org for US. And the application was very easy. You just had to provide a sample of the online issue, and you could just share a URL to them. It could be through, I used YUMPU, or you could use, obviously, I think like Issue or some other place where the publication is available to see like in full entirety digitally, like so they can flip through it, some sort of shareable link. And then you also had to send in a physical copy of your one issue as an example for them to scan. They also wanted to see the location of your lit mag or journal on the site visibly. It doesn't have to be a specific address. I know some, editors and those who run it, for privacy purposes, right? They don't have a PO box or anything at the time. So it's okay to have just it seems like they were totally okay with just the city and state. And that should also be present in the issues. So in your issues, you should have a page that states, the terms of sharing, right? And content, there's a common blurb you'll often see at the end of each publication or towards the beginning, either or. No part of this issue may be reproduced or stored in an electronic transmitted device or area. No part of this may be shared without the author's explicit permission. Those that are featured in this issue, of course, can share on social media, or photos are permitted, but you can't make copies of it and stuff, mass copies and things like that. So yeah, on that page, I put our ISSN information, I put our city and state location and things like that. And yeah, but the ISSN should be visible on the front, right? And the ISBN as well. Take a look at some of the issues, again, you've purchased, of lit mags and journals and compared that. Look very closely at the barcodes and you'll see that, yeah. So something else I want to cover here is that there are some things when you're pushing your book through Ingram. I've heard of conflicts. It could be a book or it could be an issue with a lit mag journal. So if you have a publication through Ingram, I've heard things about conflicts with after using or using KDP at the same time, distributing your book through more than one platform and through Ingram, Spark, and KDP. I think it's a timing thing. So I think if you wait, I could be wrong and don't take my word for it, but I heard online somewhere, I was reading some forums, I think if you wait after the release date, then it doesn't become an issue when you distribute through other platforms. Again, each ISBN is unique to each issue and or publication, so you can't multiply it across and things like that. An ISSN should be across your serial publication, the magazine or journal. Typically, I see others put it on the front, and just make sure it's a location that's not blocking anything or covering up, photography or art on the cover or any names. So yeah. There are some other things about ISBNs, right? And, you have to take into consideration. It depends where you're located too. I, again, am based in the U.S. So those of publishers and writers in Canada, I think in Canada, there's a waiver process or it's a free essentially. So if it's free for those in Canada, lucky ducks for them. That is awesome. I wish that would be for all publishers and everything. I heard that Canada, I think, has eligibility requirements to have free ISBNs for publishers and self-published authors. I don't know if that's how that works or anything, but I think there's just a form you complete and fill out, and then they determine whether or not you get a free ISBN or ISBNs. I don't know how it all goes, but I think that should be applied to everyone. I'd love that program to be here in the US or some sort of setup for all publishers and things like that, because ISBNs and getting imprint costs can be expensive. So I personally think that $125, $575, $1,500. Think about all the poets you could pay with that money, or what future publications you could fund with that $500, $100 even, or what you could do with it. I feel like that's a lot of money. Again, a lot of lit magazine journals are running on shoestring budgets, and So the thing about the And I think, oh, by the way, I think Australia, I can't remember. Australia has different costs, and, it depends where you're located, how much it's going to be, really. So, yeah, look that up, and be very careful of, like, again, scam artists and things like that. It happens. So, yeah. So, I would recommend you have some sort of, I would recommend getting a barcode, an ISBN. If you are going to maybe really want to get into physical stores and locations, there are some smaller shops and some locations that absolutely will still sell, publications without any barcode or anything on it. But it makes it hard for, distributors and orders of it to happen. If you do not have an ISBN, if you are not part of the Ingram network, it is very hard to get into physical locations. So, yeah. ISSN is, again, it's mostly just for series identification, right? And then your ISBN is for like any individual issues and releases. So, yeah. So, like, if you have a chapbook publication, it can have an ISBN, right? Magazines issues can have both an ISSN and ISBN. So, yeah. What I was doing to help me was sort of look at how others, again, had it displayed on their issues and stuff. Since we're doing a relaunch and stuff with Dippity Lit Mag, I'll have to let you guys know, like, how we facilitate our new look and stuff, and the barcode, and whether we're going to do that or not. It really I'm looking into a couple different things with our formatting and stuff, so I'll have to let you know, like, how we change our process there with our issues. Our ISSN and we got a printed digital ISSN, by the way, because the issues were available to read both, digitally and in print. And I'll maybe cover mobile app readers in another episode, or digital readers too. But and most the time you can see publishers who have it. You just list it on the bottom of your website too. And the ISSN.org, again, it was a very easy process. The one thing I didn't like about the process is that once it was approved, they just gave it to you, and I felt like they should have said, this is where you go to generate your barcode, right? These are places you can use to do that. I didn't get that from them, and it was sort of a question mark there. So I think online there are a couple different generators out there, but some aren't free, and that was concerning to me. So, what you can do, you can reach out to fellow publishers or editors, and they can help you with that. One that someone had given me was, I think, Barcode Tech. It's a Barcode Tech site. That's not the exact URL, but I have to look into it more since we're doing a relaunch. And the changing the structure of our labeling and stuff, and the ISSN should always be visible and also listed in the interior, and you can again have an ISBN as well. So I think that's all I wanted to cover on ISBNs and ISNs. I think so. There was a place, though, I'm trying to remember what it was called, that had this cool generator on their site. Let me see if I can find it real quick for you guys. Okay, yeah, it was Asterism Books. I think that's what it was. They don't have an ISSN generator. They have an ISBN generator in there. But again, it depends. Like, if you go through Ingram Spark, or if you go through Bowker to get ISBNs, Again, definitely helps, when you're doing things like this. I think prior to doing it, I think it would have been helpful if I had reached out to fellow editors and lit magazine journals, and I did that later on, about like the generation of the ISSN and that. So, yeah. So yeah, there's a site called Barcode Tech. There are other sites like that have like the ISSN, and it'll say like, I think 2 digits, and then there's another one that says ISSN. So you have to look at that. And yeah, just again, be careful. You shouldn't be like, falling for any of the scam ones out there. And a lot of fellow lit mags, journals, and editors are willing to exchange that information on how they generate their exact type of barcode and how they did it. So yeah, as we do the relaunch of Dippity, I will perhaps share with you guys exactly the direction I decided to take, because we don't put at this time barcodes on all of our ISBNs on all of our chat books. We have a couple places that do, but we have some locations where we do not. And there are a lot of small presses that don't put ISBNs on their chat books. And, so I think Bottle Cap Press, I think a couple others out there that I've seen, they don't do that. And some do. Some places have ISBNs on every single publication they release. So, yeah, even if you go onto a site like Asterism Books, Asterism Books, I think. I was forgetting to pronounce it properly there. But Asterism Books. So, we were rejected by Asterism Books, by the way. I think it's because they didn't tell me why exactly, but I think it's because we were too early with our catalog and our series, or it could be, something else. I don't know. But, yeah, I was never told exactly why we were declined to have a publisher account through them, but I think it was just too early. A couple other places had told me you don't have enough in your series yet developed to qualify. So they said go through other distributors and other avenues to get listed in their location, not Asterism, but other places that is trying to get us facilitated in digitally, like in the ebook space of mass distribution. Obviously, people have heard of draft to digital, other places. There are other avenues you can do to get mass distribution. And a common one for ebooks, right? Amazon Kindle, but yeah, it's easier when there's one platform that a lot of readers use that are, reading the ebook, right? And to, centralize it. Some places have connections with libraries and things like that. So anyways, Asterism Books, I had heard about them. I think what they basically do, by the way, it's an online bookstore and distributor for independent presses and publishers. So they help with like fulfillment, basically, and it's a warehouse and storage. So I think basically what happens, like they have a fulfillment of like all the books and publications. Let's say you get into their database and stuff, or become available through them. I think they take a percentage of each book sale or purchase. I think it's like as of 2025, I think I saw it's like 24%. And Asterism is spelled Asterism. So yeah, when you use their search, you'll see it says search by the title, author, translator, or ISBN. So you see it is absolutely important to have an ISBN, so places can help with the fulfillment, the distribution, and tracking and identification of it. And so they also seems like they have ebooks listed in their site as well. So yeah, maybe in the future I'll try and reapply for a publisher account again. Maybe when we have a larger series development for both our chapbooks and our issue relaunch. But I just wanted to share that, guys. And there are other places like Asterism Books out there that help with not so much as I think Asterism, what I've heard, they really have helped others get into physical locations and bookstores per what I was seeing on their channels and stuff. But there are some places, and I'll share maybe later, but that help with, storing a large quantity of your issues and your publications, and then facilitating the shipment and shipment of them, right? Anywhere in the world. There are some places like that. So a little bit different from Asterism Books. But they definitely have a unique setup, and they've helped quite a few publishers. So maybe one day we'll get into Asterism Books. But again, it's important to have ISBNs, absolutely, for publications and distribution and stuff, especially if you want to get into physical locations. They really help, booksellers and other, really obtain, these publications from small presses and things like that. So, yeah, I'm not too familiar with what they do because we haven't been it was a little bit last year sometime. I had just tried the application process. So I thought it looked really cool. And they have some things for librarians and booksellers and stuff. Yeah, so it's interesting. You should check it out, guys. Again, I'm still learning about some places that help with additional distribution and stuff. There are different places that can do that, right? If you can't facilitate that all on your own. So, yeah. They have some applications for booksellers, I think, for libraries even. I saw a place for applying for a library account. So, yeah. I think it centralizes the acquisition of and ordering of lit mag journals, books, and publications. They had categories by short stories, art books, poetry, queer stories, magazines, and journals. Yeah, so it's a good place to see examples of publications and to find more. Even I came across a lot of ones I didn't even know existed, and I was like, that's so cool. And so another great place to find, lit magazine journals through Asterism Books too. I can't remember when they started, but it's definitely something I'm interested in. So maybe one day it'll be possible. I think it was just too early for us, and we didn't have our ISBNs and everything settled and stuff, and our ISSN at the time as well. So that is important as well for tracking series and stuff. So yeah. So I hope this episode helped you. I would say if you are not a publisher, if you're a writer or just someone who wants to test the waters of self-publication, it's not absolutely necessary to buy an ISBN. It's okay to use the pre-provided ones. I mean, it's not the end of the world. Just know that there are absolutely some bookstores out there I've seen on their website saying, we do not order, I saw this on our website, we do not order anything from Amazon. And yeah, in large letters. So keep that in mind. They're absolutely, most bookstores, a majority of them are only going to order through the Ingram network. And I can cover this maybe in another episode on how to get into the Ingram network and things about it. But it's not like an application process into the Ingram network or anything like that. There are some places that facilitate the distribution into the network. And then there's a percentage. In some places, there's a percentage you choose the discount book, others who order from, whichever place you're publishing through, whichever platform, a 40% discount or 50% discount, which affects the listing price, right, to those who order it. So it can get complicated, but it's not that complicated to get into the Ingram network. It's actually very simple. It just comes down to, things that affect your listing price, right? How many pages is your publication, right? Is it full color printing and things like that, right? That'll affect your overall price. So yeah, anyways, check out Asterism Books. I just thought of that on this episode, but they don't, facilitate, to clarify, they don't facilitate giving out barcodes or anything like that. They have an ISBN generator on there, but it won't be really necessary, again, if you go through Ingram Spark or, Bowker to get an ISBN. I know some publishers don't use Bowker at all. And so it's not absolutely necessary. If you really care about maintaining your imprint and having it say, the name of your press, the name of your lit mag or journal in the details of the publication on the bottom of any place it's listed, then yeah. But obviously they'll see the name on the cover of your publication. So, I mean, cost savings, right? Cost savings, the whole thing. But it absolutely is beneficial to have an ISBN if you aren't tending to get into physical locations, and a good idea to go through the ISSN process wherever you may be located in the world. I think each country has a dedicated sites for doing either or. So you want to look at that. yeah, unfortunately, again, it's not 100% free in the US, or we don't have like a waiver system or anything to my knowledge for ISBNs. So that's unfortunate. I think it varies in each country, the whole ISBN acquisition process or purchase of ISBNs. Yeah, I wish it was free. I wish like we didn't have to do anything. ISSNs are free, by the way, but ISBNs aren't, it varies where you are. So yeah, anyways, I hope this episode helped you. I will put links out to some of the things I mentioned. And yeah, so just again, I would recommend looking very closely at, some fellow lit magazine journals out there. See how they have if you've ordered publications and you have them in your, on your bookshelf or somewhere, look very closely at the whether they have barcodes or not and stuff like that. And again, it's not impossible to sell your publication without barcodes, but it helps again for identification and tracking. There are some events you can attend still, you won't be like disqualified from attending events or stuff like that just because you don't have a barcode on your publication. But when it comes down to the network of like bookshops, libraries, and stuff, you're making their job easier when you have that ISBN and your serial number, over a magazine series or issue, and the ISBN for when purchases and sales come through and tracking for that individual issue and each one. So yeah, so it's really up to you. I would highly recommend though that you do have some sort of thing. I've seen some publishers, by the way, have just QR codes, and those QR codes just link off to their website or something fun usually. But I think, if you're really concerned about or want to get into more places, it is, I think, important to go through both, go through the ISSN application process if you're a magazine, lit mag, or journal, and also as a publisher to get those ISBNs. Now, you don't have to get an ISBN it's not absolutely necessary again, but again, it's beneficial. I would recommend it. Just in terms of trying to get into places, the experience I have had, a majority of them will only take things from the Ingram network, or they may not even, right? It really depends on whether they like your publication and whether they feel like it's a good fit for their store or location too. That comes into consideration. But it makes a lot of bookshops and possible to reach your publication when it's through that central It's considered like a primary distribution network, the Ingram network. I'm not really sure how the Ingram network all started and stuff, but so maybe I'll do an episode just on the Ingram network and distribution, because But yeah, I hope this episode helped you. So I'd recommend getting an ISSN for your lit mag or journal, whether it be print or digital or both. And then, also getting an ISBN for each individual issue. If you want to maintain your imprint, then you might have to go through one of the avenues to do that. Ingram, Spark, Bowker, it's just your name there. I feel, honestly, can be a waste of money a little bit if you're self-publishing, and you're testing the waters. It's not necessary to get a barcode right away. Of course, if you start a series without a barcode or any of the labeling they typically have, it can cost money to go back. And some places do revisions and updates, right? Not all places have that, right? But just keep that in mind. So with the relaunch, I'll let you guys know how it goes, like what I decide with like the location of our barcodes, and we have our ISSN still and stuff. So it's just mainly like our because we might be changing our distribution and print providers, so this will affect us in terms of that, like whether we continue to distribute through the Ingram network a version of our issues, or whether we just sell it off of our site without a barcode, and we do have some chapbooks that are just sold directly off of our site without any ISBNs, right? And then there's some places where we do have an ISBN, on a much thinner, like a print version of it, basically, like a regular paperback version. So yeah, I hope this helps. I will link some things I mentioned down below. You can check out. And yeah, but yeah, I hope this episode helps you. It's really up to you if you care about an imprint, if you don't want to see another name on the imprint. But it's not going to, again, make it seem like you're rejected from like all, physical location orders if you don't have that. The main thing is the Ingram network and distribution, because that is a key thing into physical locations. If not that, again, there are some places like ISSNs and books that also help facilitate those connections between booksellers and physical shops, and store your publications and, quantities of them for ordering and shipping. Of course, there's an approval process for that and things like that. But there are some other distributors out there who just store your publication and help with shipping and delivery. And of course, sometimes for those, there are upfront costs, versus ISSNs and books takes a percentage of that. And they also have that whole like database search of all of the lit magazine journals and publishers in there that they work with. So I don't know if there's a competitor of ISSNs and books. I'm sure there is something similar to it in other, perhaps other places. So yeah. So take care, guys. P.S. guys, if you weren't sure what I was referring to in terms of the imprint, so if you go on Amazon and look at a couple books, right? If you look very closely at the publisher field, it'll say sometimes lulu.com or let's say Blurb even. And so that means that the publication did not buy their own ISBNs, right? They use the pre-provided ones, but they are still the publisher of it, right? Whoever published it, right? The Lit Mag Journal Press or the individual author name, because in their terms of service and their letter, if you read it closely, while they may provide the ISBN, you're still the publisher of it. They don't want you saying this was published by them, because that's a no-no in their terms. So it's published by you. They are not responsible for the content in it. You are, and they hold you accountable for that. So just to clarify, each print-on-demand provider is a little bit different, so make sure you read their terms and everything. There are some that have an option, or they have a network I've seen internationally where they do have like a publisher, and they said you would consider this place as the publisher, or with this option, you are the publisher. There are things like that with additional fees I've seen in different networks and stuff. Especially I saw that in the UK. With some print providers over there. But so just be, mindful about that. If it bothers you that, another name is in the imprint field and publisher field there, then it may be worth it to get the your own ISBN rather than the pre-provided ones. As a writer, author, I'm saying too. So I think what we'll do with Dippy, I'm just showing you guys, we probably will start getting, ISBNs and packs of them and stuff like that. I'm thinking we're going to do that. It really depends on our upcoming budget and stuff. So, of course, we sell directly off of our site and stuff too, and it's not absolutely necessary to have barcodes, but I like, I would like, physical locations to be able to carry issues and publications as much as possible. Of course, there are some small shops that totally do carry, publications without that, but there hasn't been many that I've come across anyway. So I just wanted to share that, yeah. And we'll have our ISSN probably on the front or back, I'm deciding, but it'll be alongside of the ISBN. So just make sure, you keep that in mind if you're starting a Lit Mag journal, and definitely take some time to do so, because it can impact your series, it can impact the availability of ordering from other places. And it's always a good idea to allow others to order your publication in as many places as possible. So I think it's worth it to go through, places that have Ingram network distribution options. And a lot of small publishers and presses and magazines and journals can't afford the cost, or they just end up using sometimes pre-provided ISBNs. And of course, the publisher field is impacted by that. So yeah, keep that in mind. Again, it's a barcode, guys. So it's mainly for identification tracking and sales and stuff like that, and cataloging and organization purposes of each issue. So yeah, but definitely worth it. I feel it is worth it to do that if you are very serious about your imprint and everything like that. Yeah. So for Dippity Lit Mag, past issues of it, Dippity Lyric Magazine, because we shortened our name now. So, but the ISSN again was just on one of the endmost pages, like for copyright information, where it says no part of this publication may be reproduced, etc., etc. So the print and digital number was there for ISSN. There's 2 different numbers there, and then our ISBN was on the back, and that's fine. But I think what we're going to do going forward is to have both of them visible on the cover and do that. So I'll let you guys know, because we're changing our print providers and distributors and stuff. So this is going to affect how we approach our ISBNs and everything. And I've been looking at Ingram Spark a little bit, actually, since one of our, the submission management systems that we are actually migrating to, the option, there's an option or an integrations they have with the system for publishers actually that go into Ingram Spark. So that's something I was looking at a little bit, and maybe I'll talk about that on a future episode. But that new submission manager we're moving to Subfolio looks really cool, and it is there are some integration options with the organization overall that maintains it, and the founder of it has created some Ingram Spark integrations, it looks like, and a few other features. But I'm not sure what all of that entails yet, so I'm doing research on that. But I'll definitely share anything I come across with that. But I just wanted to share my thoughts on ISBNs and ISSNs. So I think if you intend on your publication running, 10, 20, 30, 40 years, you definitely want to have, barcodes. You definitely want to have ISBNs, and it's a good idea to go for the ISSN, which is free, serials to maintain your series, and so do both, guys, do both. That's what I'd recommend overall. And it's not absolutely necessary again. And there are some publishers that do nothing but ebook publications as well, and digital publications, and that's totally okay. So you have to really think about it, what you want to do. I'm just sharing my thoughts and, some advice. So, I hope this episode helped you. If you're a writer, again, artist just starting out, it's not absolutely necessary to, go out and get ISBNs and, to do all that. But I think, does it look better if your name is on the imprint versus another place? Yeah, it does. But I mean, it's not the end of the world there. If cost is really issue of trying to be, budget friendly and cost stuff, then don't do it. It can be, seeing some of the numbers on ISBNs in the U.S. especially, it is kind of alarming. I wonder, 50, 60, 70 years from now, the evolution of, books and barcodes, are we still going to have all these processes for that? Are there going to be different methods for that? Is it ever going to change? That's what I wonder. I don't know. So definitely, if you're starting out and you're not sure, it always helps to see examples and to ask and to chat I'm always willing to share, things I've done. I don't like, holding back knowledge. I feel like everyone should share their experiences and things they've gone through to help others. So I hope this helped you a little bit, and I'll share some other things in the next episode. Maybe we'll cover, some editorial experiences, or maybe I'll talk about Substack in future episodes next. We'll see. I might share both again. I mentioned doing that a while back, but I'll get to those topics as well. So this was one I just, came up because we're doing a relaunch. So I want to discuss like the whole thought process between, needing ISSNs for magazines, issues, and journals, and then getting also an ISBN for, distribution and orders and stuff, tracking and stuff like that. It streamlines it much easier, again, if it's through the central Ingram network, and not all, print providers have that option, to distribute in there. And oftentimes you have to get the barcode yourself, right? Like I mentioned, a couple ways to do that. There are probably other methods out there, but again, you'll be very careful who you're going through for your ISBN. Ingram Spark, some people use, again, Bowker. So it's worth it, right? To have that, I feel it is. It's just a matter of cost. I didn't do it at the time for a lot of our starting early publications, our own imprint and things like that, simply because of cost, just didn't have the ability to do so at the time. So with the relaunch, we're going to restructure things, and with our imprint maybe, and getting those ISBNs acquired for each individual issue. Not absolutely necessary on our chapbook series, but I can always go back, we sell some through our site, and I can always go back and, give those their own unique ISBN. I can always do that. It's not a huge deal. But with issues, it's a little bit trickier, because of the time it takes to upload and them, and some places have, again, revision costs, not all places. But yeah, you just want to keep that in mind. It's better to think about this earlier before starting than, middle of your series or starting it, because then you have to go back and update, do listings over again, stuff like that. It can get kind of messy, so always to do it if you want to from the get-go, and to have that, I think it's just, again, for organization purposes, ease of ordering, tracking sales, and, if someone's picking up a publication without a barcode, it makes it hard for it to be, sold in other places. I think, makes it easier when it's there. Obviously, I grew up in shops where a lot of books had those, just like price tags on them, and places would sell stuff in shops with just like those stickers of the price, right? And, things like that. And so there are some shops that are willing to facilitate, books like that in their shops and stuff, or to have them available for others to read, like in coffee shops and stuff, probably, or smaller shops and stuff. But I think on a larger scale, like Barnes and Noble, some of the bigger bookshop and store names, they are going to typically only order through the Ingram network, and that needs an ISBN, obviously. So yeah, do your ISSN, get the serial for it, go through the process, and then get also your ISBNs for each individual issue. So yeah, you just want to be, careful on cost, right? So, again, it makes sense to do a pack versus just one at a time, I think. And but it can be costly in the U.S. for, going through Bowker and stuff. I think I saw somewhere in a chat or something, someone said they don't go through Bowker, and I never found out like where else they were referring to. But I don't know if they were saying Ingram Spark or another, place like Ingram Spark that facilitates the purchase of an individual ISBN for, for an issue. So each individual issue should have a unique ISBN. Your ISSN will never change. Your ISSN is going to be the same across everything, but your ISBN will be different for each issue. So, yeah, I hope this helps, because no one really told me about this until I realized much later. I always saw, these journals and mags have their ISSN, they have an ISBN. We don't have that right now. It's like, oh, I wish I did that earlier than later. So I just wanted to take the time to share that. We started just doing with ISBNs and stuff like that, but it's good to have both, your serial identification and to have an ISBN for each issue. So, yeah. Also, guys, some places, they don't require that you have an ISBN. They don't. What they do is they have if you have it in just like one particular online bookshop, some of them, what they do, they give you a dummy identification number. It's not necessarily a dummy number, but it's just some identification number, right? And you don't have to have it on your publication at all. Like we don't do it for some of our chapbooks, right? So yeah. There's for a chapbook series in one bookshop, like the Great British Bookshop, right? You can get like just a identification number on it, and it's not necessary to put the code on the back of it or anything like that. But you can go and get an ISBN. If you do end up, they have like an option where they have their own publication entity through Book Vault. And then there's like an additional fee for that. There's usually one-time fees through Book Vault for listings. I think it's always, if you're going to be a publisher, right, it's not a good idea to have someone else listed as the publisher. Now, the whole imprint thing, places that help with print on demand, it's not a huge deal if they're listed on the imprint, but it looks more professional if you're, the publisher and your name is across the series, right, versus some like lulu.com or Blurb or another place, right? You want it to be consistent. But of course it comes down to cost, and that's really why some places, over time I've seen some small presses and stuff, they end up using pre-provided ISBNs, and yeah. Again, they're just using them as the print provider. They're still the publisher because, yeah, but yeah. So just keep that in mind if it bothers you that your imprint's not on it with the ISBN. You can go out and buy those individual ISBNs for each publication. So yeah, you might just have to budget it out because it can again cut costly. So yeah, that's all. Take care, guys, and see you in the next episode. Yeah.